Welcome to Hari's Hobbies, the channel where we discuss the latest tech news and delve into the newest tech products. Today, we're taking a look at how the 12nm architecture and GDDR6 memory will affect the GTX 1180 because on paper, the technical specifications of the GTX 1180 seem to be identical or very similar with the GTX 1080 Ti. But before we get into that, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys would like to stay updated with the latest tech news related gaming and PCs. So what happened? Well, recently, Micron released the official specs for their new GDDR6 memory. They posted a huge 22-page document with all the specific details about the GDDR6 memory, but the most important and most significant upgrade is definitely that the data rate is going to now be 16 gigabytes a second. So previously, GDDR5 memory had a data transfer rate of 8 gigabytes per second, and GDDR5X memory had a transfer rate of 12 gigabytes per second. So that's twice as fast as GDDR5 memory and at 1.5 times the speed of GDDR5X memory. So it is quite significant. What's even more surprising is that Micron claims that they can overclock this new memory all the way up to 20 gigabytes per second if they make some slight modifications. Now, does that mean that we will see 20 gigabytes per second on GDDR6 memory? Well, unfortunately, probably not. However, that may be what we will get with GDDR6X memory or whatever the next upgrade is. So what exactly does this mean for graphics cards, however? Well, if you take the GTX 1080's GDDR5X memory and swap it out with the hopeful GDDR6X memory with 20 gigabytes per second speed, and you keep the 256-bit memory interface width, then the memory bandwidth of the GTX 1080 would go from just 320 gigabytes per second all the way to 640 gigabytes per second, which is very close to the Titan V's memory bandwidth of 652.8 gigabytes per second. So that's all cool and all, but what real-world performance does this actually translate into? Well, unfortunately, this new GDDR6 memory isn't going to double the speed or anything, and a more reasonable estimate would be more or less 10 frames per second for the GTX 1180 and 1180 Ti, whose predecessors already had GDDR5X memory, so it's less of an upgrade for those cards. So for example, if you take the GTX 1080 Ti and the GTX 1180, right now the specs seem identical, except for the fact that the GTX 1180 will have GDDR6 memory and 12nm architecture. The GDDR6 memory portion of that upgrade may lead to an increase of 10 frames per second, more or less. But that's pretty much it due to GDDR6 memory. For lower level cards like the GTX 1160 and 1150 and 1170, the upgrade may be more significant because those predecessors only had GDDR5 memory whose memory speed was half. So for those we may be seeing a FPS increase of maybe 15 to 20, but even that is a bit hopeful. So really, this will probably offer more or less 10 FPS. So, should you wait? Well, as for the GTX 1080 Ti, all you guys who are considering to buy that card, the GTX 1180 specs look pretty much identical. If you guys want the full rundown on all the numbers and things like that, then make sure to check out my full dedicated video on the GTX 1180. But overall, the only thing that seems to be differentiating the GTX 1080 Ti and the GTX 1180 is the GDDR6 memory, 12nm architecture, and a bit better efficiency. So as I suggested before, the GDDR6 memory may lead to an increase of 10 frames per second. And then the 12nm architecture, along with the extra overclocking headroom provided by the extra efficiency, may lead to an additional 10 frames per second. So I think we can expect around 10 to 20 frames per second extra from the GTX 1180 over the GTX 1080 Ti. So taking that into consideration, it may be worth waiting for the GTX 1180 if you guys want a little extra performance or would like to be on the newest architecture. However, the performance difference is quite minimal, so if you guys find a really good deal on the GTX 1080 Ti, then it may be better just to go ahead and buy that instead. If you don't really care about the extra performance or being on the newest architecture of the GTX 1180, and you guys just want to buy a GTX 1080 Ti, then something else to consider is that the GTX 1080 Ti will drop in price most likely once the GTX 1180 comes out. So once the GTX 1180 comes out, you may be able to find really good discounts and deals for the GTX 1080 Ti. So it may be worth waiting for the GTX 1180 to come out before buying a GTX 1080 Ti, even if you know that the GTX 1080 Ti is what you want. As for lower level graphics cards, the story is a lot different because we are comparing the same level of GPU. For example, we would be comparing a 1060 with 1160. If you didn't notice already, we were comparing a 1180 and a 1080 Ti, not a 1180 Ti and a 1080 Ti. The 1180 Ti is not coming out for over a year from now, so it really doesn't make sense to compare those two. And so as a result, for lower level cards, we can compare the same level of GPUs, and so the story is a lot different. For these cards like the 1150, 1160, and 1170, these cards are not only getting the improvement from the GDDR6 memory and 12nm architecture, but they are also getting a technical specification upgrade as well. For example, we will probably see an upgrade in CUDA cores and TMUs across the board for all those GPUs. And on top of that, those cards should pretty much cost the same as what you are willing to spend on the 10 series right now. So those are definitely worth considering to wait for. As for the 11 series, I think we can safely assume that the 11 series will provide over a single GPU level of upgrade over the predecessor. So for example, the GTX 1160 should perform a little bit better than the GTX 1070, and the GTX 1170 should barely perform better than the GTX 1080, and so on and so forth based on how the GTX 1180 just does barely better than the GTX 1080 Ti. So pretty much for the price that you are willing to spend on a GTX 1060 right now, you can get the performance of a little bit better than the GTX 1070. So I really recommend that you guys consider waiting if you can. But that's pretty much it. For the GTX 1080 Ti, it doesn't really make sense for waiting because the next biggest competitor that is coming for it is the GTX 1180, and that should pretty much offer the same performance as the GTX 1080 Ti, so it doesn't really matter if you wait for it or not. But for all the other cards, I definitely recommend that you guys wait for it because the performance upgrade will be quite significant. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Are you guys excited for GDDR6 memory? And what do you think about the new 12nm architecture and the 1100 series? Make sure to comment down below what you guys think because I do read all my comments and I'm curious as to what you guys think, so make sure to post your thoughts. Also, if you guys like this video, then make sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you guys would like to see more videos just like this one. But until next time, bye.